Hello and welcome to the Route 1 show live streaming on Twitter. Oh, let me just stop the music. Hang on. Can't stop it. Hang on. There we go. Sorry. We'll try that one again. We can't. We're live. I was literally just saying to Lewis before, I said, the fancier you make it, the more mistakes will happen. And there you go. I forgot to turn the loop off. Never mind. Anyways, you're watching the Route 1 show live streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And we're taking a look at non-league now. I'm delighted to say Lewis Sale is joining us. Lewis, how are you doing, mate?
Not bad, Steve. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad. Enjoy the theme song there.
Can't get enough of it twice. Happy days.
Good stuff. Well, we got loads to get through, and we can't really start anywhere else than Bradford Park Avenue and a remarkable set of circumstances for the game against Scarborough. I mean, just incredible. I mean, talk us through it. I mean, what happened? I mean, a depleted squad, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, where do you start? Before the game, well, in fact, after the Chester result, we lost in the last minute, which were really disappointing. But even after that, in the post-match interview, Bowers come out and said, I don't know what team we can put out Monday night. Sometimes you hear it from managers where you're going, we might have a few knocks. Let's I'm sure we'll be fine. Before kick-off on Monday night, we've put a statement out saying we've tried to get the game postponed because we've got injuries, suspected case of COVID, suspension, but unfortunately got declined. So a lot of us are going to the game thinking, who's going to play? Is it literally going to be an academy team? Are some of the first team is going to be fit? We've no idea what we're going into. We walk through the turnstiles and we see, some of the lads warming up. Some of the lads who are in the tracksuits around, on the running track who were not part of a team. And, we were thinking this is going to be an interesting night because, obviously, the academy lads are going to definitely get a chance.
Did you fancy getting your kit on, Lewis?
It was, to be fair, along the very similar lines of we were asking each other, if we're fit, have you got your boots, have you got your shin pads, because we might be on the bench. And it was not even joking, because if Danny Boschel can get registered at 41 years old, we might have stood a chance. And I think, even speaking to Jacob Live, and he was, kind of warming up as well on the pitch before the game. And I'm speaking to him, and he said he had a really tight groin. He was playing on Saturday, shouldn't have played. He pulled it against Blythe, and he says that, there was no way he could play on Monday night, and he says he was only one of a few. And when you say one of a few, I've got the list in front of me of players not available: Mitchell Lund, Lucas Dunstan, Reece Staunton suspended, Will Lancaster, Jordan Preston, Simon Richmond, Jacob Blythe, Will Longbottom, Mark Ross, who's just signed a long contract the Saturday before, and Lewis Colton. That's 10 players missing. And not only on top of that, I would speculate there was about probably 5 or 6 in that in the starting 11 that probably shouldn't have played. We had Luca Raverne, who is an absolute immense leader. I mean, how he got through that game, I have no idea. He was, he had a challenge in the first 10, 15 minutes and he could hardly get back up. He just looked injured. Harrison Hopper were, kind of sticking to his surname. He had one leg basically clapping around in midfield. Jamie Spencer, not fit enough at the moment, recovering from injury. Brad Doherty was strapped up. The list goes on. It was unbelievable. And I say it was quite extraordinary circumstances when you watch the lads. But I commented after the game, and especially during it with the people that were there, for me, it was in the top 10 performances because there was a togetherness and a spirit that I've, some people, be honest, may have questioned during the season, and that just typified everything of what the lads are all about at Avenue at the moment. Even speaking to Mark at the end of the game and Danny, Harrison Hopper came back in the dressing room on Saturday, could hardly walk, and he was saying, you possibly can't play on Monday. And he says, no, I'll see you Monday. And I'm like, be careful. And he's like, I'm playing Monday. This is a 21, 22-year-old who's still, trying to find his way in the game at this level, trying to progress through his career. And that just kind of shows a mentality, not only the senior players, but the younger players as well. It was unbelievable. And it might sound unfair to Scarborough, but we probably had the best chance of the game with Brad Doherty, and I think Brad were disappointed he didn't score towards the end. And I mean, if we'd have won it, it would have been, even more unbelievable. But to do what we did, I think on Monday, were exceptional. It was an unexpected point, and it's one that I think will give us a big boost. But it's how much is Monday night taken out of a team ahead of Saturday. That's the $1 million question. I think that's in a lot of our minds. I think a lot of us would have hoped potentially we might have had one or two maybe coming in for Saturday to help us, but depending on budget and money and availability of players, we've no idea. But we don't have a big squad as it is, so to have 10 missing was really tough to take. But the lads who came in, especially the academy lads, George Eze, who came in at right back, he's been injured himself, been struggling to get in the academy team due to injury, came in and was exceptional. Louis Colton on loan from Hull, playing in an unfamiliar position at left back, did a decent job there. Zach came off the bench as well, and so did Miles, two academy lads, and it just shows, to be fair, the great work that Tom McStravick, Patrick Maguire, Blake Campbell, and the rest of the guys there have done to get those players not only playing regularly academy football, but actually be ready to step up and I wouldn't say necessarily make a difference, but be part of the first team and feel reasonably comfortable that Mark can pick them and select them and have confidence to do that. We've never had that. I'll be honest, we've never had it all the years I've known and followed Avenue. So that's really encouraging that Mark can call on them players and know that they're capable of doing it. Whether they can do it week in, week out, let's be honest, it's questionable. But for one-off occasions like that, it shows where the academy is at. But yeah, we need players for Saturday, whether that's existing players or one or two to come in and help us. And we got a last-minute loan from Barnsley as well, Daniel Benson, who apparently turned up an hour before kickoff. Doesn't know the lads. Been drafted in alongside Luke Laverne, who's injured himself as captain. And Benson played like he'd been with us for years, which is testament to him, a testament to what Barnsley have done. And I think from the club's perspective, shows a really good relationship we've got with local teams like Barnsley, who are able to help us out in desperate times.
Have you ever seen anything like it in terms of a squad depleted like that? Because I can imagine at that level, obviously, it's really difficult, isn't it, when the injuries pile up and you've got so many games one after the other. It must be really difficult. But I mean, that's kind of exceptional, isn't it? How affected they were.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you always go to games and whatever team you support, you kind of know that a lot of players might be carrying the odd knock. That's going to be expected. I think for any player to be 100% at this point in the season is, relatively uncommon. But I've never seen a situation like what we saw on Monday in terms of those that were unable to play, and even like I said earlier, those that played and were injured. And I think if we had like I say, it is an exceptional circumstance. But if you did have a bigger squad of, say, you were in a higher divisions of a squad of 25. I don't think 4 or 5 of them would have played at all on Monday night. And let's remember, these lads are part-time. We've got jobs outside as well. They're sacrificing their bodies and their livelihoods to play a game on Monday night in a division where it's tough. It's it's a strong league, but at the same point, like I say, you're putting yourself on the line a lot. And that's not to say full-time players don't, because obviously they do. But these lads are earning a living outside of football. They do it for the love of football and try and progress in that. So for some of them, and like I mentioned earlier, likes of Harrison and Luca and the rest of the guys was unbelievable. But yeah, I can't remember a time or a situation when I've seen not only Avenue, but any team in that situation where they've really struggled to put a team out. But to the credit, they've got exactly what they deserved. And like I say, ability-wise, probably in terms of the game itself, was it high quality? Probably not. But I think just on pure guts alone and determination, I think Avenue absolutely deserved a point. And, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Scarborough fans felt the same, really, because it got towards the last 10, 15 minutes where they started to get desperate and hitting shots from 30, 40 yards, which, I think from an Avenue perspective, we were really encouraged about, because that's exactly what you want, because it's going to take a special goal to get past George in goal, who, is fully fit and he's one of the best keepers in this league. So by restricting a team who were 4th, 5th, flying high in the playoff positions, who were pushing for promotion, against ourselves, who were at the time 2nd from bottom, really struggling on a run of form to get a win, was a huge credit to what they've to not only the players but the management as well to do that, because, like I said before the game, we've gone out publicly saying we wanted the game cancelled, well, not cancelled but postponed. Could you've waited that potentially till the end of the game? I personally would have done, but that's my only personal opinion. I'd have waited regardless of the result until after that. But at the same time, it makes that draw, I think, even a little bit more sweeter that we have put that statement out and we wanted to postpone it and we've done the job on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. And how valuable could that point be by the end of the season with how tight everything is? It's
got to be. And I know I said this last time, we've got to start picking up wins. We've got games coming up now where it's hard to say, but on paper, you're hoping to get some victories. But that point on Monday was not expected at all, especially around the circumstances. So, yeah, you'd hope that would play a big part in getting us closer to survival. But as the games go by, draws are not good enough. It's going to have to turn into wins. And this is where we need the players coming back as soon as possible, but not just coming back for numbers' sake, but they've got to be fit and ready to play. They might not be 100%, but hopefully they're a bit fitter than what we saw on Monday night.
Yeah, 2 working legs would be nice, wouldn't it? But what did you make of the fact that the appeal was rejected and quite resoundingly rejected as well, and saying if you don't play, possible points deductions and relegation? I mean, it seems incredibly harsh reaction to a situation that is incredibly rare. But
yeah,
what else are we supposed to do?
I don't. It's hard because I don't know the situation behind the scenes. It's how many players we've had registered. I think because we were able to put some players out, and we had academy players registered as well, probably makes it, into a situation where we can play. We've also got to remember we've got likes of Lloyd Smith on loan at Frickley, and I don't know the details around his loan contract at the moment with Frickley, whether you can recall him, when we can go back. I know in years and years gone by, players on dual reg, and they could go back and forth between players. I think it's probably slightly different in that situation. I'm in the camp where it doesn't, not that it doesn't surprise me that it got refused. I think it's more of a fact that we've got enough players registered to do it, and I'm in a frame of mind where you get on with it. You got to deal with it. I understand the perspective where in keeping integrity of the league and a competition at the same point, but sometimes you just got to deal with it. As harsh and as tough as that sounds, it's very rare you're going to get an occasion where teams are depleted, like you said earlier, with injuries, and but at the same point, we've had a player suspended, was unnecessarily suspended. He got 2 yellow cards in a game where he didn't need to get 2 yellow cards. So we're picking at occasions of that. So there's pros and cons for either. I personally agreed with the decision to get the game on, and also think it adds a little bit of fuel for the players and the management as well, to say, we might have possibly wanted a game postponed, but let's actually prove a point that we're still good enough on the pitch to do the job. And like I said earlier, that they did do that. But yeah, it's one of those situations. Like I say, even thinking back, and I remember we went to Boston years ago and we had to play Liam Dickinson. You'll remember Liam from Leeds days and Stockport days. Yeah. We had to play in goal away at Boston. But I can't even remember whether we tried to have that game postponed. So yeah, sometimes you've just got to roll your sleeves up and get on with it. As tough as and harsh as it might sound, unless you literally have 3 or 4 players available, you just got to get on with it and do it. Does it even come to the point where, do you play 9 or 10 players? If you can put that team out, I think is what 7 or 8 players is your absolute minimum that you require. So does it come to a point where you have to start the game with fewer than 11 players? I actually don't know. But looking back, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I'm glad it went on. And in some respects, it could be a real big boost for us in this survival push.
Yeah, because it's earlier in the season, you would have said a very tricky game against Peterborough Sports coming up. They're on a bit of a poor run themselves. Is this quite a good opportunity actually to get a vital win?
It's got to be. I think arguably the next 2 games have got to be chances where we pick up at least 3 points. I think if you're the management, you're probably looking at 4 or 6 points. It's a very tough place to go. It's Peterborough. They've had a good run in terms of the beginning of the season. Like you said, they've dipped slightly in form, but they are still beating the likes of Brackley at home, which is a great result against a team that are always going to be up there or thereabouts. They've changed ownership recently, so there's, off the field, that's been boosted. I know they've probably got a bit of work to do on the ground to get that satisfied by the end of this month to stay in this division. I know obviously Michael Gash at the moment is in charge. They've got Matt Jones out potentially injured on Saturday, which is a boost for us. But, Gash is probably going to be fit. And he's, a very good, prolific non-league striker at this level. So we've got to go there with that belief like we had on Monday. And I think this is what I said. You've got to bottle that attitude that we had on Monday, added with a bit of quality in around that, and you can get 3 points out of this. But yeah, we need 3 points at the moment very quickly, because not only are we not winning, there's teams around us that are winning and picking up points, and they're keeping that gap between ourselves and the rest. And, you can argue the likes of Buxton, Curzon are probably just about out of it at the moment. They could easily get dragged into it, but only 2-3 weeks ago they were right in the mix, and now they've put a run of results together and now with it. And now it's looking like it's, almost a 6-team battle for that last 4 spot.
Yeah, and you alluded to it there in Telford, in midweek as well. I mean, that you look at, it's got to be 3 points if you're going to get out of trouble, hasn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And this is where, Telford have really, really struggled this season. And I know that with Wilkin coming in, they've probably been a little bit more steady. They haven't lost as many games, but I think they've only won 2 at home this season. Right, and one of them was on the first ever season against Charlie. So, and the last victory was back in a couple of months ago against Buxton away. So, yeah, like you say, you've got to, with the greatest respect to Telford, you've got to go there and get 3 points to stand a chance at getting out of this division. We've got run of games now with teams who are, we've played Fylde both times, we've played Brackley twice, we've played King's Lynn twice, we've played Kidderminster twice. Pretty much for top teams we've played twice. We're now playing teams who are in and around us, with likes of potentially Peterborough, Telford, Boston, but we've also got teams who are mid-table. And when you look back in years gone by, when you're in mid-table, there's much to play for. Does that momentum carry through to the end of the season? Do you mentally kind of just drop off a tiny bit because you're safe? You're not going to go up, you're not going to go down. Your contract might be safe for next season. So we have a run-in which is tough, but it's achievable to get out of. But like you say, I think those games against the likes of Peterborough and Telford are massive for this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And Telford's opponents on Saturday, Farsley Celtic, will move on to them as well. 3-1 loss against Fylde. I mean, played well by all accounts, but just not clinical again.
Yeah, and I think there'll be, and I think what's going to be really tough for Farsley is that they're not on a run of form at the moment, which is favourable for them compared to 3-4 weeks ago. And I listened to Russ against Banbury because they conceded a last-minute equaliser at Banbury, which we all know about at Avenue when, we conceded a winner there as well in the last minute. So it's those, it's those turning points in the season where it might just come to it. And when you lose in the last minute, that's a really tough one to recover from, which I think makes Avenue's result against Scarborough even better after losing against Chester. Fylde are probably arguably at the moment the best team in this division. I watched when we went to watch King's Lynn. King's Lynn was steady. They were stubborn. They did the things that you'd expect a challenging team to do, but whether they just had enough to potentially finish top spot was questionable. And even some of their fans were saying it's going to be really tight. And that showed between the two teams last week, and when they drew 3-3. So from Farsley's perspective, I think it's one that you write off. They've got again a few games coming up where potentially can get something out of. The home form's carried them through recently, whereas at the beginning of the season it wasn't. And I think Russ and the team will be looking to get back to winning ways. But when you've got goals coming from all angles, like Frank Mullen did against Banbury, which is arguably one of the goals of the season from 35 yards when he chipped the keeper on a half volley, it was unbelievable. You've got players like that in your team, you're capable of anything really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did see Russ Wilcox, who was saying about, they had that little bit of an unbeaten run before, didn't they? They'd had a run of draws, unbeaten for 7 games, and it's about going on another run like that because, when we looked at it a few weeks ago, there was that large gap between Avenue and Farsley, and obviously they've closed that up. But obviously, Avenue and Farsley still occupying those two spaces in the relegation slots there. How concerned from an Avenue point of view are you about Farsley and how they're getting on at the moment? Because they've got 2 games in hand on you as well, haven't they?
Yeah, I'm kind of gonna be very diplomatic. You can only look after yourself, can't you? But it's one of those where I'd much rather have the points on the board. But from Farsley's perspective, I've said it how many times to you guys before, but yourself and Chris, is that I think on the counter attack we're one of the strongest teams in this league. They've lost Jimmy Spencer, which is a huge blow. No matter how you talk about, they may have gone on a run of form after it, he's going to be a massive loss when it comes to the real crucial end of the season, because he's got experience and he's probably at that time one of the best players, if not the best player in that team. Now it's kind of up to Frank Mullen to kind of lead from the front a little bit more.
Yeah.
The thing with Farsley is that they've got the experience, which is going to be a huge plus. They have got the likes of Dave Size, Adam Clayton, Frank Mulhern, Atkinson. They've got players in and around that team that have been there, and whether it's been at the top of the league, bottom of the league, they've just got that bit of experience that sometimes you need. In terms of being worried about them, of course you're worried, because you're looking over your shoulder thinking, if you get at least a point, they're above Avenue. And obviously when you look back on results, we've both cancelled each other out in terms of both being draws, over the Christmas and New Year period. So there's going to be some really interesting results, shall I say, I think, towards the end of the season. You're going to get, the odd result here and there, which surprises a few people. Boston being a perfect example midweek, going to Charlie and winning 3-2. Farsley early in the season beating Kingsley. And, those are the kind of results that are going to see teams stay in this division. Whether Farsley have got enough left in the tank to do that, I think they probably have. It's whether they can also back it up with the odd draw here and there to get them through, because, like I said, they've got them 2 games in hand. But if you lose one, that's really hard to kind of take, because you haven't got much left with really to work from.
No, exactly. Absolutely. It's going to be fascinating watching it, how it unfolds over the remainder of the season. Dropping down a division, then we're going to look at Guiseley, and disappointing performance by all accounts, a 3-1 loss to Radcliffe.
Yeah, I mean, Radcliffe are up there on merit. We've got a really strong squad with a lot of EF experience, led by Bobby Grant. I know Navarro scored a couple of goals as well for Radcliffe, so it's no surprise I think Radcliffe are up there. I think, for the way guys have been going, they've been steady without being unspectacular. And I think I mentioned this about a month or 2 ago when they were on a really good run of form after Phillips had joined, where there's going to be a bump in the road, and it's how you react to that. They're probably in that at the moment. We haven't won since early Feb, which is ironically the same time Gainsbury were playing this Saturday. They're unbeaten since the 4th of Feb. So, it's kind of tale of 2 teams, really. Guiseley going into this with a little bit of with something in the back of mind where they need to get a win. It's a home game, and the 7 points adrift of the playoffs, so they're going to have to catch up pretty soon. They've got the place to do it, but I think, like I say, when any new manager, I think he's still trying to shuffle his team about, which is really interesting at this point of the season. I think from guys' perspective, if they sneak into the last place of the playoffs, will be ecstatic, because it's anybody's in that playoff race. But I think losing that on Saturday maybe just sets a little bit of expectation, a little bit, just to kind of just reset a little bit, actually, where to say, we have got a fight in our hands. We're not going to walk into the playoffs. You're going to have results like that, and it's how we recover and bounce back from that, which is going to be a real indicator, because, again, he's bought experience. Matt Lees from Ashton, Shane Smelts as well, who's been there, 40-odd years old, New Zealand international on the highest stage. It's those players where I think will play a real pivotal role for the younger players that we've got, to say, actually, this is what we need to do. And if I tell you to do this, just do it. Trust me. It's that kind of back to the wall mentality. And 7 points is not a lot to make up, but as the games keep going, and as long as Guiseley don't win, there will be a kind of, I think, a bit of a desperation to get into that, because they're more than capable of doing it. I think we've got one of the strongest teams in this division. It's how quickly does that plan come together for Phillips? Is this year a bit of a bonus to get into the playoffs and see what you can do? Or do you almost just go for it, see how well you can do, but make sure in back of your mind you're ready to hit the ground running from day one? And it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. And I think we'll probably find out in the next 3 games where guys are going to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they were 2-0 down within 15 minutes as well. So
Yeah.
at least it was a respectable scoreline in the end. It's Gainsborough up next for them, and it's another tough game, isn't it? Gainsborough in 6th position, flying, doing really well themselves.
Yeah, and Gainsborough have been one of those teams where they've struggled in recent years, but they've got a good settled squad. Again, built around experience, like Clayton Donaldson are playing at Gainsborough now as well. And traditionally have been always a National League North team. They've always been there from, I think, almost from the early days, really. And for them to get relegated when they did a few years ago was a surprise, and they've never really kind of kicked on since then. And I think that's the worry of some teams at the moment in this league, where if you do go down, you're not going to come straight back up. It's a lesson for a lot of teams. Like I mentioned earlier, they're unbeaten since early February. They're in and around the same positions where Guiseley want to finish. I think this is a real crucial game for both teams. Probably more so Guiseley, I think, because if Guiseley win this game, it gets them back up for the rest of the season and shows what they're capable of doing. I think if you lose it, Gainsborough are going to pull away a little bit from Guiseley, and that points difference gets larger than 7 points. So it's a tricky one. But with Guiseley not having a game midweek, I would suspect, I think Phillips will go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Elsewhere in that division, just to round things up in our region, non-league wise, Liversedge 2-1 loss against Bamber Bridge. I mean, they'd had that back-to-back win, hadn't they? Liversedge, that really got them up the league a little bit, but it was always going to be difficult, wasn't it, against Bamber?
Yeah, and I think that's where it's been. That must have been a really hurtful one, I think, especially when you go back-to-back. You're beating like some Marine at home. You think this could be it. This could be the turning point of the season, and then you're going back it up with a loss against Bamber Bridge. And tough game, but for Liversedge to stay up, they've got to go on a run more so, and I think than any teams in our region in the non-league scene at the moment. You look at it from outside in at the moment, it's going to be a real tough ask to stay in that division. I think they need another run of potentially 3 or 4 wins on the bounce to do that. I said before, I think they've got the squad to do it. It's whether they've been consistent enough to do it, and I think they've got to put a run of games. I don't think we've really had a run of games. I know they've got postponed a lot over the festive period with a lot hardly ever played, but they've just got to pick some wins up from somewhere. And I think at the moment when you look at it, they've extended goalkeeper Patrick Borge from Hartlepool for the rest of the season, which I think a lot of fans seem to be encouraged about. Obviously, EFL player getting his experience at that level. Your goalkeeper's going to be, which is a massive thing at non-league level, because I'll be honest, been in the non-league scene for a lot of years, goalkeepers move about so much between teams. So to have that settled down for the rest of the season is a big bonus. But it doesn't get any easier. You got FC United away on Saturday. Huge tie. But they've been familiar with FC because they've played him in the league and they've played in cup competitions. And then they go and play Lancaster on Tuesday night as well. So from Liversedge's point of view, they've beaten FC United away from home already. They can go do it again. And I think it's not only they can do it, I think they've got to do it now. And they've just got to get a run of games now of like I say, victories. And I think if you lose these two, prematurely, you're kind of writing Liversedge off and saying we're going to get relegated. And I think that would be such a shame because they've put a lot of hard work and effort to get in this division, been so strong over recent years. They can't go down without a fight, and I'm pretty sure Ramona and the guys there won't. But they've just got to make sure they take it as far as they possibly can at the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we were chatting on another video that we've got possibility of, I think, of 5 or maybe 5 of our teams across the region getting relegated. We're doing North Yorkshire, I think, next year or something. Get out of West Yorkshire if that happens. Blimey, what is going on?
Well, if that happens, I mean, obviously, we don't want that to happen at all for everybody watching and listening, but that could potentially mean we're all on a promotion push next season, which makes it better.
I like you thinking that. That's a good positive spin on it. I like that. Lewis, thank you so much for joining us, mate. Please remember, if you watch a video, please give us a like. Do subscribe to the channel for more non-league content as well. I've been Steven Browne. Lewis, thank you, and we'll speak to you again next week, mate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.